Yo, 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 what's going on? It's the NOC, the Nerds of Color, and we are back with another ShoPowSho. It's your boy, Kuya P, aka Patrick Michael Strange, the Babinka boy, the Adobro, the leader of the Hala Hala homies in the Center gang. And I'm here, of course, with the amazing Ates, but we're missing an Ate tonight. Kataphorric, we love you. I hope you're holding it down. We're going to hold it down for you. But let's give a shout out to Miss Viva Valentina. What's up, Tina?
Hey, Patrick.
How are you tonight?
Good evening. I am doing great. I'm really excited for this one.
Same. This cat is amazing. He's been killing it as an artist, been a fan of his work. He's been doing drinking draws with some of my other mutual homies. And that's just amazing to hold it down with a pencil, but yet also be drinking and drawing. You don't think those should mix, but it's actually an amazing experience, especially if you can see it live. If you've ever gone to a drink and draw, it's crazy. But Glenn is a phenomenal artist. Glenn Urieta, who I hope I got the name right. I know I probably brutalized it, but we'll get him to correct me real quick. Let's bring him up on the screen. We're going to shoot off the air horns. Glenn Urieta! How good was I there? Not so, how close was I?
Very close. It's Urieta.
Urieta. I love that.
Yeah.
So we got to get some explanation on that when we dig in. We got to get that background. I'd love to hear it. Welcome, brother. Kuya, Glenn, thank you for joining our ShoPowSho family to tell your stories. We want to give you your flowers, bro. You're well deserving of it, man. You've been doing it for a long time, and it's about time you got some of that love, man. And I definitely want to give them to you. So let's do it. Tina, kick us off with the first question out the gate.
So, Glenn, we always like to know, where are you from? But like, where are you really from? But like, where are your parents from?
That's always a fun question. When that first question comes out, like any black person or person of color, that first question comes out, you're just like, and it's the follow up. You're like,
Right. It's that mutual groan, like
But no, I'm from
really want to know.
Right, exactly. No, I'm from Queens, New York. Well, born in Queens, raised on Long Island.
Queens and Long Island, awesome. But where are your parents from?
My parents are from the Philippines. My mom's was born in Marinduque, and my dad was born in Mamburao, I think, if I remember correctly.
All right.
Like it's all like in Central, not too far from Manila, both of them. So
okay. So we're gonna dig into that a little bit. Before we again give you your flowers, we want to honor the past, the ancestors, the people that came before. Also, like if you know a little bit about that parents' love story, how your parents got together, how you became the manifestation of their hopes and dreams. What was that like? Just anything you can share about those that came before, and if anything from them came into you, and or any signs of that would then give us a glimpse of to the man that you would become.
That is a tricky thing. Our family is loving but not close. There wasn't a lot of and let me know if you've heard this in all your interviews and stuff, but they're immigrants, they're first generation immigrants. My mom came over in like the late 60s. My sister was born in 71. So sorry, Jen, put her business out there. But so it was like right at that the immigration laws were loosened, and obviously the Philippines has a sort of complicated and tangled relationship with the United States. So when my mom came over, she came over first with the nursing program. That is not unusual.
No.
And then my dad came through after, and then my sister was born, and I was born. But I think my mom was very keen on instilling that assimilation was survival. My dad wanted me to, I remember a couple of times he tried to get me to learn how to speak Tagalog, but I was very much a uncontrolled child. It was a fairly permissive household, but I mean, they both, like, I'm a child of the 80s. I was a latchkey kid. I walked to school when the bus service wasn't, like the school buses didn't come around our neighborhood anymore. So I was on my own a lot. And I was raised by my mom as best she could, and by TV a lot of the time. So I'm an American kid through and through. I'm a Filipino American kid, but there was a lot of time spent in the weeds of just trying to survive and trying to be like, oh, I'm like everybody else, and I'm not. I couldn't hide it. Like, this is exact. I'm a brown Asian kid in a white neighborhood. There's no hiding that, as much as I tried to, which is a tough and bitter pill to swallow and admit at times. But
and that is that
it is.
It mirrors a lot of people's journeys here. It's where it's like, yeah, we're gonna immigrate to the States, and then we're gonna blend in. Yeah, definitely feel that. So they didn't teach you Tagalog at home. What kinds of things did you guys do that came from your parents' culture, Filipino culture?
I mean, church. I went to Catholic school for 8 years, so that was a big thing. I really liked. I was a little kid and I had a barong. That was. Like the first I was like, what is this? This feels weird, because we had school uniforms, so those were cotton, and then I had to put this kind of stiff, almost translucent shirt on. I'm like, wow, with the embroidery, and I'm like, I feel special. This is magical. That was fun. What other things? Honestly, not a lot. Like I said, my mom worked really hard. She was a nurse. My dad got a job as a bookkeeper at like a toddler's clothing manufacturer in Manhattan, like right in 34th Street and by Penn Station. And this was the 80s, so you could be an immigrant, get a job without any, like, I'm pretty sure my dad has a college education, but like he emigrated here and just got a job. Yeah. And then my mom was a nurse, so that was specialized. And then they bought a house on Long Island, which is you can't do that now. You can't do that now. So they were living the dream, and that included, 2 kids and Catholic school, and just trying to make sure that they're fed and clothed and kind of don't stick out. It was, don't stick out, or else you're going to get caught out there. And I was a kid, so I ran around and I made as much noise as possible, and got into fights. Like, this doesn't answer your question. I don't have a lot of connection. With my, well, okay, that's not entirely true. I'm sorry, this is rambling. But we also had another family that were cousins. I think we're actually related, but like the lineage is so spread out. But they, I don't know if it's the same in where you grew up, but there were different groups that I guess immigrated to the same areas, so they started their little social organizations together. So we used to do that kind of stuff. Yeah, right. Yeah, titas, all that.
Even though they wouldn't be blood, that's just how it was. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So and so that I would spend time with them. But growing up, I didn't know what was Philippine culture and what was American culture, or what now that I'm older and understand the sort of influence that America has had on the Philippines, like how much of it was brought over, but was initially American in the first place. So, it was a very confusing time for me to grow up, and try and understand what my place was.
So I'll say then, to add this, maybe this could help a little bit in kind of distinguishing things a little bit. So, like, have you ever seen The Debut with Dante Bosco?
Yeah.
So I think you and I, as artists, as comic creators, because I was a comic creator before I like really got into acting and film and stuff. But like how like he would you know, he in the debut, he sold his comic collection, and then he had his friends with him, and they wanted to come in the house, and then, hey man, what is this fork on the wall? What is this spoon on the wall? Why does it smell like fish or something? Like, did you ever have those experiences that kind of made you, you know, like some self-hate in a way? Like, or did you, because you weren't understanding that? Because I know I'll say it, you know, I've admitted it here and there. While I was very proud, it was kind of hard. You didn't want to explain to white people. Well, for me, my white friends, I didn't want to have to go through explanation. So I just, you know, while I enjoyed it, I found it difficult to explain it to other people.
Yeah, I did. You know, where I grew up in Valley Stream, Long Island, there wasn't. We moved there. I think I was like 5 or 6, and I got the shit kicked out of me for like a year straight. The weird thing was, and I got called everything from, you know, we're Filipino, so you know, summertime, you get dark. So I got called the most creative, nasty, horrific things. If you could take an epithet for a Chinese person and an epithet for a Black person, blend them together, that's what I was. And I was a little kid, so that was the first time I heard those words were directed at me. And being Filipino, it wasn't accurate, but it was just like, oh, okay, so I'm different, and I'm the target of this stuff. And then growing up, like, you know, it's Long Island, right? So there's Chinese food, there's pizza, there's, you know, a Jewish deli, like all within the same, you know, strip mall. And but when kids would come over, and I'm like, oh, you know, like they're finding snacks or whatever, and we had just had jarred duck sauce in the thing. I'm like, oh, this is good with it, and they're just like, I don't want that epithet food. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking? We just came back we just had lo mein. Why is it any different in my house than anywhere else? But it's because, you know, like there's a weird alchemy of racism that you could buy it, but you don't want to associate it with it in your own home kind of thing. So it's like, so that was rough. Yeah, I mean, like it's not yeah, I think whatever I lost in being exposed to a positive Filipino culture, I got a lot of negative reinforcement for how different I was, which was an education in and of itself. Like, so
it's just created a little bit of self-hate then for you a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know. I'm about to be 45. I will air out all my dirty laundry about this kind of
it's
stuff.
Real time. No, bro, we're with it, bro. And I don't mean to put you out there, but I think that's why we do this too, and why we want to bring it up. Like, we've been there, but then you can come back and then have pride in who you are. You know?
Yes,
but
absolutely.
That's part of it. That's part of the journey, you know. And then you appreciate. I know for myself, I appreciate myself even more now. You know, and it's sad.
Yeah. It is, and it being an adult, middle-aged man, looking back, being like, man, I feel bad for that kid, even though he was happy, he got he wasn't in want of, or I wasn't in want of anything, but there was a lack of maybe, and no fault to my parents, but there was a lack of guidance. Cultural guidance and connection to heritage that maybe would have grounded me a little more, because I spent a lot of time floating around. Luckily, like, I'm not predisposed to addiction or any of those things. Any of the violence, I didn't lash out. It was more inwardly directed. But all that stuff also informed, like, okay, I am different. So what is it that, but if I'm going to be different, I'm going to be better at being different. So I focused like the first real thing that I loved was skateboarding. And my mom she bought me a Tony Hawk skateboard. And it was one of those things where, like, I waited out front. I still do this now, but I was, when the UPS truck came by, I was just like, what's going on? Is that it? For like weeks And this is pre-internet, so I mailed away for that shit, you know?
Hell yeah.
And then one day, my friend Lee, his mom across the street, I was like walking around like just a sullen kid. And it was near my birthday and in December. And I'm walking around and she's like, how come you're not on your skateboard? I'm like, it hasn't arrived yet. She's like, oh, I thought it arrived. I saw the UPS guy drop something off at your house. And I was like, no. And we ran home and I was like, did he come? And my mom was like, no, what are you talking about? And she's smiling. I'm like, oh, she hit it. It was supposed to be a birthday present, but I was like, nobody can keep a secret in this neighborhood.
Neighbor snitched.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
And then I was obsessive about that thing. I carried it with me everywhere. Skateboarding
became your first love.
Yeah, skateboarding and then basketball, but I was really terrible at it. You know, I loved it. And I think I discovered it when I was like 12 or 13, both of them. And I was playing, you know, we were little hood rat, suburban kids just running around. And then, you know, I was like, oh, I got this sweet jumper, this fadeaway jumper. And then all the other kids hit puberty at the same time. And I was like, why do you have 9-foot arms?
Right?
What is going on? All right, I'll just stick to my skateboard.
Bruh, that's the truth. That's the real truth. So, it's funny how because that mirrors mine, bro. I had the vision where I had Thrasher magazine.
Yeah.
But I could not stay on that board at all. So I gave up the board. And but that's where I discovered comics. And that's kind of like what I wanted to lead into. Like, because of all the bullying that informed how I got into art, you know, and film. I just, you know, would watch everything, 80s baby as well, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Goonies, all of that stuff. Got heavy into film, but like comic books became like the first love, like the Chronicles of Spider-Man. Like I could connect with those characters, especially Peter Parker. You know what I'm saying? He's bullied all the time. And, you know, and Todd McFarlane was on the pencils at the time. Brilliant. You know, so of course I'm going to fall in love with Spider-Man. Then Eric Larson, Mark Bagley. But yeah, that connected. And then Uncanny X-Men, then I felt really connected. And so I dove myself into art because like, okay. And like you were saying, if I'm gonna get bullied, I'll be crazy. I'll make the dopest Filipino superhero you've ever seen, or you know these cast characters that okay, then you'll see how cool we are as a people. So that's what part of the journey that I wanted to get into, how that informed those experiences. And so I appreciate you talk about how skateboarding came, and then you said basketball, and like you, I got shorter while everybody got taller.
Yeah, I grew wrong.
Wasn't gonna be a thing. Nor football. I tried football. I love football. But so let's talk about that childhood into high school years, and just some of the stuff you're into, and actually before we get what you would tell us what you were into, what would you be embarrassed if I can possibly get it out of you? Is something embarrassing your parents would tell us about a young Glenn Urieta?
My dad would. I don't know. My dad. So he wasn't. We didn't have like a strong connection. Man, anybody like family that watches this, they're either gonna get mad or they're gonna be like, "Oh, I know this. He never talks about this stuff." But he and I were very close, and it's at best a strained relationship, even now. But he would probably not have a whole lot to say. Nothing but supportive. If nothing else, he loves me. And my mom would say that I was angry, but she wouldn't tell you anything specific. Like she's when I say that she supported me, if I came home and said I killed somebody, she'd be very disappointed, but she'd be saying that while she was getting the shovels. So so your question is, what would they say? They wouldn't say nothing. They wouldn't say anything.
Not without a lawyer present.
Yeah. They would be like, I don't speak English.
Nice. Ride or die.
No, I don't know. I mean, apart from that, there's the thing that she, if you're trying to get some dirt or, I don't know, she'd be, yeah, maybe that I lacked a lot of focus, and she still worries about it. I talked to her this morning and she was just like, are you working? Like, yeah, I'm working, Mom. Like, it took her a while to understand what freelance life was. And then when she got it, she was like, oh no, no, you need like a job all the time. It's like,
we'll get into that because I'm sure that happens every what was the 80s Glenn into then going into high school? Were you into the same stuff now, or you said skateboarding, you said basketball?
Yeah, skateboarding,
basketball. Get into the picture then? Did you were you into G.I. Joe, Transformers, as a lot of us were?
Yes. Transformers, Thundercats, G.I. Joe. Okay, all right. So you want to know? I was a little liar too when I was in grade school. So I remember we were drawing, you know, like not a contest, but like at lunch where everybody. And I told somebody that my neighbor worked on Voltron. For no reason.
Sounds like good shit.
Yeah, yeah. It's like nobody gave a shit. But I guess I just wanted to be close to it, you know, and I wanted to be near people that made stuff and made stuff that everybody loved. So that's weird. I just kind of putting that together now. But yeah, so I guess that kind of directed a lot of, you know, the choices that I made to become a person that makes stuff. Yeah, so I was into Saturday morning cartoons, Gummy Bears and Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers, and you know, a lot of that Disney stuff. Do you remember when they started syndicating like the old Jackson 5 cartoon? Do you remember?
Okay.
You know, it was weird. Yeah, it's like a 60s cartoon, but
yeah,
that caught my attention for a minute. Like that was in grade school. Yeah, Voltron was a thing. G-Force or Gatchaman is official, but G-Force when we were little, that was called Battle of the Planets, right? That's the other thing.
Battle of the Planets.
Yeah, but so anything that was colorful, anything that was animated, I loved. I mean, do you remember the PBS show? It was like a suspense show, but it had an animated opening. It was like an Edward Gorey illustration. It was very like spooky looking. I thought that was a cartoon. And then like people came on and spoke with British accents. I was like, I don't know what the hell this is. The Pink Panther, do you remember that Peter Sellers movie? But there was a Pink Panther cartoon.
Yeah.
But the credit sequence for the movie was animated. And I was like, oh, I'm buckling in for this movie. And it's like, again, another British guy. I was like, I don't understand what's going on.
That would always throw me off. Like I was down for like this cartoon and then it get into that. I'm like, what is happening? This isn't what I tuned in.
These are people.
Yeah.
Right. But that informed a lot of the crossover from Saturday morning cartoons and that syndicated, you know, what G.I. Joe and Transformers were ultimately a 30-minute toy commercial.
Exactly.
But that led to horror movies, and like my mom took me to go see RoboCop in the theater. That
same. My parents took me.
That was. I loved it, but as a parent, I'm like,
they're like, what
were you thinking? But like everybody in our generation, it's like we were reading Stephen King, we were watching RoboCop, we, you know, like all these horror, you know, all the Freddy Kruegers and Nightmare on Elm, or
I watched the
Friday the 13th.
This summer I watched The Predator with my 10-year-old, and like I had never seen it before, and he was like, oh, like he watched all the Alien movies, and I was like, all right. These are fine. And then he's like, can we watch Predator next? And I was like, yeah, I've never seen it before. And I'm watching it and like people are getting like flayed and I'm like, and he's like eating it up.
Yeah. When he grabs, doesn't he like pull his head out and the whole spine comes out with him? Just like, what were we watching?
That was the coolest movie ever supervision. As a young boy, though. As a young man, that was the coolest movie ever. I gotta say.
Oh, absolutely. Like Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters is a beloved movie, and it plays like a kid's movie, and then Dan Aykroyd gets blown by a ghost, and you're just like, who are they making this scene for? What was this about?
Hell yeah. Oh yeah. It's so good though.
But yeah, so yeah, like yourself, I love movies. I love the all those, anything that had like really good effects. I loved. The kid that told me to go see RoboCop, and I guess he tricked us to go so we could get in. But he had a Fangoria. His parents got him a Fangoria subscription.
Magazine was the shit.
So that was amazing to me. Yeah. So that, I mean, as a 10 and 12-year-old watching that movie, I ended up working in effects in LA for a little bit. So like a lot of the stuff that I did as a kid informed the decisions and trajectory of the stuff that I got to do.
That's why we like to dig.
Yeah. So with that being said, so along those lines, what were some of those early influences? Because like so you fell in love with the material, right? So did like for me, I fell in love with Amazing Spider-Man. Who's the artist on this? Oh, it's freaking Dave Michelinie on the writing chores and Todd McFarlane on the art chores. Like John Byrne was my Uncanny X-Men and Peter David was the writer. Like, did you like gravitate to finding who was the people behind this amazing work that you loved?
Yeah,
who were some of those early influences?
Oh God, so I missed out on all the Frank Miller, David Mazzucchelli stuff. I completely love David Mazzucchelli's stuff on Batman Year One and Daredevil, but that was not for me when I wasn't even aware of comics other than Spider-Man, and that was only because the Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends show I didn't collect. Oh, wow. But so my real intro to comics was okay. So my friends, if they watch this, they're going to roll their eyes because they've heard this story a bunch. But the Infinity Gauntlet number 3 or 4. It's the one with the Starfield on it, and it's the tiny figure of Thanos, and he's come and get me, and he's just taunting. And I'm like, what? It was on a spinner rack at the candy store across the street from my high school or my grade school. Actually, both. I went to Catholic school on one side of the street, and then when I graduated, I went to high school across the street. So there's the same candy store. So I didn't know what that was, and I didn't know the character. So I picked it up and I flipped it open, and I don't know if you know the issue, but it's all out chaos. It's all out. Oh yeah. Punching. That's all it was. Superheroes punching each other. And I was like, this is fantastic. And Spider-Man was there, and Wolverine was there, and Captain America was there. And I was like, this is what comics are all the time. This is fantastic. I had no idea that it was like a special event kind of thing. So then I went and I asked my mom I went into the Yellow Pages, found a comic book store, and went to the comic book. I asked her to drive me, and I went and I picked up whatever I could. And that's kind of how it started. And then the artist that really got me was... So
that was Ron Lim, I think, right? On Gauntlet?
That was Ron Lim, but it was the story that hooked me. It was Jim Lee that got me. Because I think at that time he was doing Executioner's Song or Extinction Agenda or what. It was something with Chris Claremont. Yeah. And that was... I was just like, this is incredible art. It was very cinematic, and obviously my visual language was informed by movies at that point. Like I was watching at that point, I knew Jaws, Close Encounters, E.T., Empire of the Sun, all of Spielberg's stuff like the back of my hand. I could tell you why, the shots that he was using. Like I didn't have the language, but I understood what he was doing to sell scenes. So looking at Jim Lee's work, I was like, this is a movie, but I could control the pace of it because I'm turning the pages and I get to like pour over all these images. And that's I traced him incessantly. Same. Like him and then it was McFarlane for Spider-Man. And then
so let's give a shout out though. I want to pause there. Shout out to the tracers, y'all. It's okay to be a tracer out the gate as a young artist. I'm really trying not to yell out your mother's a tracer right now. If you know. I love it. But there's nothing wrong with that because that gets a bad rap with some kids. Like, bro, I was a tracer until I really learned how to do it myself. Until I pulled out Wizard magazine with Bart Sears or my How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way with John Buscema. Like those were my Bibles, yo. But first, I learned the function by tracing. Straight up.
I think well, I went to art school, so my freshman year, my drawing class, our assignment, like one of the end semester assignments, it took like half the semester was find a piece of art that you like, recreate it in a different medium, whether it's pen and ink, whether it's, you know, colored pencils, pastels, whatever. Do whatever you want, but recreate it as closely as possible. And it wasn't tracing, but it was work on somebody else's stuff to such a granular degree that you understand why you begin to understand why they made those choices, or you make your own choices to get to that point, but it needs to have intentionality behind it. And that's the only way that you really understand what other artists are thinking or how you process those visuals. So anytime I hear people like, oh, you're a tracer, you trace, that's not real. It's like, well, then you haven't gotten dirty with it, because that's how you learn. And I paid good money to learn that. So, you know, like it's true. And, you know, anyway.
No, I love it, man. So you fall in love with the craft. So do you take classes in the high school leading up, you know, as we get to the college question? Were you taking? So
I tried to drop out of high school. That's how unrebellious I was. I went to my guidance counselor and I was like, I don't think I'm going to be coming back. And I didn't talk to I was so disaffected so 8 years of Catholic school, you're hanging out with your friends, like boys and girls are playing together, and then something happens. It's called puberty, but I wasn't really understanding it, and everything changed. Everybody got the manual, everybody got the rule book, or so I thought. And I was like, why isn't anybody playing tag anymore? This sucks. I don't understand this. So I kind of retreated into myself, and like whether it was drawing or comics or movies. And then I graduated and I went from Catholic school where we were all regimented in uniforms, and then we were in a public high school, and I was like, I don't know shit about shit. And there were people, and I made friends, but it wasn't like I wasn't close with them. I didn't hang out with them outside of school. And by the time I was a junior, but beginning of my junior year, I was like, I just don't want to do. I was barely passing anything. I was like, I wasn't cool enough to leave because I didn't really have friends. So I couldn't like bum a ride to go somewhere else. So I was just like, I feel like I'm just wasting my time. So I went to my guidance counselor and I said, I don't think this is for me. And little did I know that the guidance counselors were there to counsel you.
Yeah.
And
right? Give you guidance.
And then he was like, well, okay, before you make this very, very serious step for yourself, child, what do you want to do? I was like, I don't know. I like to draw. I like to write, I think. And then and so there was in our district, the main district is Sewanaka High School. We were in Sewanaka, and they're like, there's a program there. It's called advertising. It's marketing, and it's like old school, pre-computer stuff. So it was like, like Rubylith kind of stuff, screen printing. But there were a couple of kids I went to grade school with, Catholic school, but they kind of went their own direction, and they were deep into graffiti writing. Mm. So I kind of knew them, and I was like, all right, fine. As long as it gets me out of school, even the bus ride was enough to get me out of school. And I felt like, all right, I'm not trapped. And then I went there and I met them and other writers and their friends, and I had a modicum of talent. So I was able to mix like the block letters and then characters. So then people were like, oh shit, you know what you're doing. And I was like, yeah, I do. So that and that kind of carved a little niche out for myself. And then people, it was like, oh, he's the art kid. And it was the thing when the terrible thing that I don't know if they still do in high school, but it's like you vote for like most beautiful smile and shit like that. Like that is superlative. Those superlatives. That's a terrible thing, because those kids that don't get voted for anything, I feel bad for them. But I got voted for like most artistic, and my little comic art group were just like, you suck, man. Like, yeah, I do.
That's really.
But I'm most artistic. Yeah. So that's actually, I mean, it was the graffiti stuff that really caught it was that, and then the comics and like mixing the bright colors and that kind of stuff that really caught my attention. And then I on a lark, I sent my application to the School of Visual Arts in Manhattan, and I went to for the interview, and I brought my portfolio as per directed by my advertising teacher, and they were like, and I wanted to go into cartooning and illustration, so I thought I wanted to be a painter as well, and the person interviewing me was like, okay, your portfolio is it's good, but like because it was an advertising class, like, you sure you don't want to go into advertising? And honestly, I was like, I guess so. I had no idea of what I wanted to do. I just kind of knew I wanted to be creative. And then I was packing up my stuff, and with them saying like, okay, we're interested in you. We'll send you a letter whether you're in or not, but we're gonna have you directed towards the advertising track. And I was like, okay. And then I'm packing up my stuff, and I was like, I also have a sketchbook that I have with me. And she's like, okay, so let me take a look at it. And I showed it to her, and she was like, oh, this is the stuff that you really want to do. And I was like, yeah. She's like, okay, no, you should be moving towards cartooning and illustration.
Oh, that's
like, okay. So it was one of those things where it's just like, going back to the way that I was raised, it's like, don't make a fuss, just go along to get along, all these different things. So that was one of those moments where I was just like, oh, they're telling me to do one thing, and in whatever it was that was just like, no, don't do it. Show your thing, show your book, show your sketchbook. And I did. And that also got me in the right path of where I wanted to go. So
that's like awesome. Yeah. That's like that scene in the movie where you're like, wait,
yeah,
no, look at this. And like, getting you on the path that you wanted, like stepping out of line and then asking for what you want. Like that's huge. Yeah.
And it's still a thing that's difficult for me to do. I'm very motivated by being accommodating and not rocking the boat. And I think that I thought I read it somewhere. I don't know the quote offhand, but it was somebody saying about Filipinos that they're very inviting and accommodating and gracious until they're not. They're not. And I think that resonated with me, because I'm like, yeah, all right, whatever. I'm okay with things until it crosses a line, and then I'm like, yo, fuck off, And so anyway.
No, I feel that.
So that got me into college, and then I was happy to leave high school. It was not a nurturing time for me there.
I feel that. But you found your confidence. You found what you enjoyed, and you found your talents, right?
Yeah, I mean, the college gave me something to focus on, and it gave me a lot of it sort of spoon-fed me a lot of the technique and stuff that I just didn't know, because I was self-taught. Even though I went to that art program, it wasn't like it was very in-depth. So art school kind of cleared away a lot of the junk that I would have had to figure out on my own. And now kids have YouTube and all these different tutorials that are free, as long as they're willing to.
Their oyster now, man.
Oh, it is amazing.
Kids these days.
Yeah.
Right. Oh.
And they complain still? Like,
yeah. Hi, I'm Glenn Urieta. This is the Old Head podcast. Where we're just gonna say, get off my lawn for an hour and a half.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, so that there were kids when I got into my school freshman year and met a bunch of artists. I had no idea that there were art high schools in Manhattan. Like, that was beyond me. So there were all these kids that were just like, I went to art and design, I went to LaGuardia, I went to Stuyvesant High School, you know, that very prestigious high school in downtown. And I was just like, oh, I am way out of my depth here. And it turns out nobody knows anything when you're kids anyway. So,
Yeah.
you know, you just kind of keep working at it. But yeah.
So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tina.
I was gonna ask. So, what did the parents think about your choice of going to art?
That's what I was gonna ask.
Mhm. We're on the same page.
My mom, again, supportive, very supportive. I think she was just happy that I think she saw, you know, okay, so this is I wanted to make a point to talk about this, but like mental health in the Filipino community is not something, at least when I grew up, was something that was talked about. And counseling and stuff was not something that was even an issue. It wasn't even brought up. For all my acting out, for all the things that like I was depressed or angry or frustrated and didn't have an outlet or wasn't articulating why I was feeling these things. My sister's 5 years older than me. My mom was working all the time. My dad was also working all the time. So there wasn't a lot of eyes on me to see these big shifts in mood or behaviors. But that said, as a parent, I think my mom was very aware of a dissatisfaction in me. So while she was worried and maybe didn't have the information to offer that as an outlet, therapy, she was going to be supportive no matter what. So when I made a choice, she was all about it. In fact, when I got my acceptance letter, I'm pretty sure she opened it because it said Astray on it. And then she knew I was coming home from school. It was around the time that I'd be walking home from school. So she walked until she met me on the way home to give it to me. And then I opened it up and I was just like, oh. And, you know,
That is so sweet.
Yeah, I think I was 17 and then, you know, like trying to, you know, oh man, I should just apologize forever for just being a 17-year-old, you know, because I was excited, but I was just like, why are you out here?
Mom, go back home.
All right. Yeah, go back home. Yeah, so it probably wasn't the most satisfying resolution to her act of kindness, but yeah, she went all out of her way to make sure that I was celebrated and she knew that I knew that I was loved. So
That's beautiful.
Way to go, Mom.
Mahal kita, Mom. Love you.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So you're in school, you're getting this technical side, you know, as artists, you know, it's all about just creating, you know, you don't want structure. You just want to do and express. Did you get afraid of this technical side? Were there difficulties with the technical?
No, I loved it. You know, I'm creative, but I like structure. I like, you know, even now when I have clients, you know, or commissions, they're just like, I want to get a commission. Okay, what do you want? I don't know. Who do you like? Oh, I'll draw Spider-Man all day. All right, then that. Well, what do you want? What do you want to do? I don't know. It's up to you. Like,
you need something a little bit, right?
I don't know, man. Yeah, it's just like, I'll draw the thing. That's what you're paying for. Like, get something that you want. Also, that's intellectual labor. Pay me for that too. Yeah. Anyway, but you know, but like, I like butting up against something, you know, and I guess that's part of it too. Don't tell me no, or don't tell me I can't do a thing, because I'll just work around it and find something better on the other side. So I like the structure. I wasn't trying to push against that, or rather, tell me what the rules are, and then I'll try and figure out what I want to do. If it doesn't match with what you're telling me, then I'll work within that to get what I want. I feel that. So that was fun, and problem solving. That's the kind of stuff that I like. So it wasn't a contentious relationship, me and art school.
So I love that. That's good to hear. So with that being said, then did your style change and to a degree to reflect the structure in regards to your style? And what are some important lessons that you think helped you the most when you were in school?
No, the school was all technical, and that's how I approached it. Just learn as much as possible. Style, that kind of stuff came later. That came after. I was always trying to be somebody else. I love Jim Lee. I love Travis Charest when he came on the scene. The guy that got me wanting to be a comic book artist was Stephen Platt.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I met him.
Moon Knight stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
That's what set him up. Yeah.
I met him at a con, and he took me behind the table and showed me how to draw. Between him doing that and then showing me like the first issue of Akira and like basic storytelling, I must have spent like 3 hours with him, and it was just like a private art school lesson. And I was like, two things about that. It's like, I want to be a professional artist, and I want to do what he does professionally, but I also want to do what he does personally, which is, give my time to other people. So if you come to the con, if you see me at cons, if you talk to anybody that's dealt with me at a con, I will spend as much time as possible with you if I can, if you're interested in art, because that left in such an indelible mark of kindness to a young person trying to figure out what he wanted, that I still try and do that now.
Wow. That's dope. Shout out to Stephen Platt, man. I haven't heard his name in a while, and he was an amazing creator. I remember when he burst onto the scene with Moon Knight, and because it was very McFarlane-esque, but McFarlane to a whole nother degree. He does
storyboards in LA, and I think he just got hired. He's now on the MCU team doing stuff. I don't know what, and I don't know what project, but he's over there with Andy Park and all those guys.
Oh, hell yeah. So, wow. I remember Andy Park in his Tomb Raider days, man. I used to run Anime USA and run the art show, and I connected with him to donate art for the art show and shit. Small world, man. Your art school's done. You've learned these technical lessons. Now, how do I get work here in the field? Talk about trying to break in. What kind of routes you took? Did you take like another side gig until you like landed a gig? And I'm sure a mom was like the whole time, this is going to be a career, because again, freelancing isn't like where it's at. How was that? Speak on it.
It was terrible. After I graduated, I had no idea. There was no class that sort of let you know how to get work or agents or any of that kind of stuff. So I graduated. And I'm sure there is, yeah. But they took my money, they gave me a diploma in exchange, and they were like,
"Yep."
Yeah. So I went up, and then I got a job at the mall, and I worked at a Sam Goody, and I refused to work the registers because I didn't want to talk to people. So I just worked in I organized VHS boxes on the shelves, and then DVDs because we're in the future. So I did that for a little bit, and then I worked at like a prop making company out on Long Island for 6 months, and then I reached out to my sister, and I was like, "Can I talk to Matt?" And I was like, "Yo, can I work for you?" And he was like, "Yeah, all right. Can you be out here in like a week?" And I said, "Yes, I can." So I packed up my shit, and I slept on their couch for like 3 months. And it was funny because so at that time, he's now at Top Cow, and like Mike Turner, rest in peace, was there. He was doing his Witchblade stuff, and
Witchblade.
And I think they might have been gearing up for Aspen. I think he was at the studio, so I don't think Aspen was really happening just yet, but they might have been talking about it. And then Steve was there for a minute doing Soul Saga. Do you remember that book that he did with Chris Leitner for a little bit? Yeah. So I got to talk to him for a bit. And each of these artists that kind of knew me from the cons were like, so what are you doing? You graduated? It's like, yeah. And they're like, so what are you doing now? And I'm like, this. And they're like, what's this? I'm like, I'm moving boxes at a comic book company. They're like, oh, okay. So basically that's all I was doing. So I was sort of ferrying original artwork from pencilers to inkers, from inkers back to the studio to get scanned by the and colored. And so it's talking about Andy. So he had gone to, he had left Extreme Studios and he went to art and design in Pasadena. Mm-hmm. And while he was there, he picked up the Tomb Raider job for so I got to see all those original pages while they were being made. And then Matt had a producing partner, Greg Aronowitz, that lived up in the valley, and they had their own little, like, very, very micro comic book toy company together. And that's where Matt was doing his Lady Pendragon stuff, if you remember that. And so I would bring stuff up to Greg. And do you know Greg? Now I got to ask.
Too. I know. Yeah, it's such a small freaking world, bro. It's crazy. Yeah.
Okay. So have you ever been up to Barnyard?
No.
His studio? No. Okay.
I've ran into them at the cons. You know, Matt would introduce me to everybody at the cons and stuff. Yeah. Right.
So he has a studio up in Studio City, and I would go up there and I drop stuff off, and it's like a half-acre plot, which is rare, you know, to have that much room. And he would just build stuff there for movies. And I knew of him. He was at my sister's wedding, so I kind of knew him. And he was actually like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm just kind of ferrying stuff around." He's like, "Do you want to work in movies?" Yeah. He basically offered me a job, just like helping out at the studio. So I think I made like molds for Tomb Raider, the Tomb Raider movie with Angelina Jolie, and then he was like, "Oh, okay, you seem pretty excited." And I liked learning new things. And this I was just a year out of college, so it was sort of like recapitulating that excitement of doing new things. And maybe a month goes by, so maybe it's like less than 6 months that I'm in LA, and he's like, "So you seem to like this stuff. Would you be interested in working on a movie?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And he's like, "Thing is it's going to be full time, so you probably can't work with Matt anymore. And I can't tell you what it is." I was like,
"Ooh,
okay." And he's like, "And I kind of have to know tomorrow because we have a meeting with somebody tomorrow, and I want you to be there." I was like, "Okay, fine." So, and I'm still sleeping on Matt and Jen's couch, my sister.
Yeah.
So I go home and I go to Matt and I was like, "Listen, Greg just offered me a thing," and I thought it'd be cool. And Matt was very gracious and very cool about it. He's like, "Listen, you got to do what you got to for you." It's like, "Okay, cool. I'm going to do this." And so I'm 22 years old. So there was like no real like, thanks, tip my hat on the way out. And then, so the next day I drive up to Greg's and we drive over to Burbank, and I still don't know what it is. So we go over to the Warner Brothers lot, or the Universal lot. I think it was the Universal lot. And he has the badge. We go in, we're driving around. There's all these you see the trams go by because it's and we pull into the bungalow. We hop out, walk in, and in the lobby of the bungalow is a big Amblin moon. I'm like, okay, so this isn't just a little thing. And then we walk into the reception area, and there's like a Norman Rockwell. There's an Al Hirschfeld cartoon of Spielberg from Saving Private Ryan. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I'm really excited. We go into one room and through another room, and it's me, Greg, and the illustrator Warren Manzer, who ended up working on Spider-Man, who I see. That even might be his illustration because he did the costume design for the Sam Raimi movie. But so it's just the three of us, and we walk into this room. There's no windows. There's all these like foam core boards lining the walls, and these milk crates, like a bunch of them filled with binders, and these storyboards tacked onto these foam core boards. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, all right, I can't make any sense of it. And this guy walks in, and he's like, hi. And he looks like if Shaggy got older. So, like very like hair similar to mine, and like but like these glasses, and it's kind of like tall but like stooped over, and he's like, Greg, it's nice to meet you. Warren, nice to meet you. And they introduced me. He's like, oh, it's nice to meet you. He's like this old hippie. And so he's like, so Steven's got this project that Stanley wanted him to do. So it ends up, I'm in this room and he's talking about AI. And Warren and Greg know all about this. And I'm just sitting there like, my friends gave me a Stanley Kubrick box set before I left it for LA. Like, what am I doing in this room right now?
Yeah.
They're going to find me out. There's security. So for months we were working on that before it was announced. So it would be, oh, and the guy was Rick Carter, the like Oscar award-winning Rick Carter, production designer.
Yeah.
Worked on a bunch of Robert Zemeckis films and like Castaway and What Lies Beneath. And so I'm this kid working on this stuff, and before the money people came in, so like some of our media, like we pull all-nighters, and I was building models, like 1/8 models of sets that we recreate from the concept designs and storyboards. Yeah, so that was a laugh. We were on that for more than a year, I think, and for the first 3 months there were no like money people, so the meetings that were really intense, we'd stay up all night and then go. So it would be me, Greg, Rick Carter, his assistant, and then sometimes Steven Spielberg would be in the room. Kathleen Kennedy, who now runs Lucasfilm, would be in the room.
Legends.
Yeah, legends. Oh, what's his name? The puppet.
Jim Henson?
No, not Jim Henson. He did the Terminator.
Yeah. I can't think of.
You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, he would be there. He did the
Wow.
bear thing. So that was one of the. I was like, okay, it's all downhill from here. Like this.
Actually, I'm gonna ask you what your mom probably asked you. So wow, this is so dope, and like you and I, like this is amazing. We're living the dream here, right?
Yeah.
But I'm sure your mom was like, okay, you're doing this for a year, and you just kind of did it on the whim. How much? Like, how are they paying you? What was that like? Like, because there was no discussion of money. You just took the job.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Oh,
was there a lesson learned that you learned as an artist for your value for the work?
Yeah.
Because you're pulling all nighters, man. Like, did that awake you to the business side of your creativity?
No. Okay. So that's a really good question, especially within the context of the atmosphere of today. Yeah. No, it was rise and grind, and that was how I was still young and inexperienced, that I thought that was the way to be. Also, you're a freelancer, don't say no, say yes to everything. So I did that until I burnt out. And at 22, at 23, you could burn out. Like you could keep going until the wheels fall off, and then get 8 hours sleep and then do it all again the next few days. And it's a terrible way to be. Don't do that. Treat yourself right. There's only so much.
Learning that lesson, brother. I'm still learning that lesson.
I can't
grinding.
There is sand in the hourglass, and every time you do stuff like that, it goes so much faster. So I think it's an experience, and I think you learn a lot from it, but there's better ways to learn those lessons. And there's better ways to accomplish a goal than, Mach 5 with your hair on fire, to steal a line from Top Gun. But but yeah, my mom again was supportive. As long as I had a roof over my head. I had moved out and moved in with a distant cousin that lived in the valley, who was a nurse, I think, and I didn't see them at all. I was barely in that apartment at all because I was always at the studio, and then they needed the room, so I ended up crashing at the studio. So I was sleeping at work for a while, and then and then after we were done on AI, I worked as a PA on a couple of other things, but then there was a threat of a strike. So then the way that I understood it was everybody was sort of like getting jobs through their connects, and everybody was a freelancer. So you just kind of, everybody hooked up everybody else that had mortgages and families and, you know, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever they needed or whatever they had to do. And I was a 23-year-old, you know, nobody with no connections. And I was just like, I don't know what to do. So I was sort of unemployed for a while and didn't know how to cycle back up into the thing. So I ended up moving back to New York and then kicked around for a while, building props and stuff. And then I ended up in American Academy of Dramatic Arts. I started taking acting classes there on Saturdays, and then from there I auditioned for a play for the Kings County Shakespeare Company, and then I ended up in The Tempest for a run, and then I was part of that company for years. Did a few plays with them, and then moved back to LA.
So we gotta talk about that transition though, like, you know, drawing out, you know, these amazing, you know, things and creating props, you know, from what you're doing, but then to get in front of the camera, what kind of transition was that for you?
My girlfriend at the time was an actor, and she was going to the conservatory full time.
Yeah.
And you know, she knew that I loved movies. She knew that I had experience behind the camera, yeah. And I was always excited to like rehearse with her.
Oh,
she's
awesome.
like, you ever try
read with her?
Yeah, you ever try doing? I was like, I don't know. So then she was like, you should do it. So I called and signed up for an audition and went in and got into the Saturday class, which I think if like you knew how to read and didn't threaten anybody at the audition, I think you would have got in. But that led to the thing, and theater was a blast. Like I understand it now. I understand why people talk about it the way that they do in that reverent tone.
Yeah.
You know, like whenever you know, there's like movies that really sort of fetishize making movies or making theater.
Yeah.
I kind of get like, oh man, I miss it. Oh, did you watch when Hamilton was released on Disney Plus?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, so they had all that behind, like in the prep stuff and like the sound of the audience coming in, all that corny, you know, really.
Well, we appreciate the
theater kid shit.
Yeah, theater kid shit. Yeah, but I get it. I appreciate that. And I kind of miss it at times too. But yeah, so I did that for a bit, and then when I went to LA, like to see the other side of it, to sort of like pound the pavement and take meetings with agents and kind of hear like the I call it what it is. It's just racism.
Yeah.
Like, you know, meeting up with other people that kind of look like me, but you know, maybe not Filipino, but like of Mexican descent, of Middle Eastern descent, and being like, hearing it more than once, being like, oh, you got a good look, but maybe stay out of the sun. Like, how the fuck is that? How the fuck is that something that is okay? You know, like if you brought that to any Fortune 500 company, like that would be an HR thing. But in casting, it's, or in trying to find an agent, that's absolutely 100% okay.
All the time.
You know? Yeah. So, you know, I lost my taste for that pretty quickly, like that. and props to everybody that does it. Like I just didn't have the fortitude for it. I grew up, one of my high school classes that I actually did like had me reading like Frederick Douglass and stuff like that. So it was like I have racism is baked into the foundation of America as a real thing that I not only believe, but I mean it's not hard to believe if you have eyes and understand, but to see it play out every day in your interactions with other people, with people that are even Asian people that have a proximity and comfort with white supremacy. Like it's such a insidious thing that I didn't want to chase it or run alongside it with something that I enjoy doing. So
you didn't want to play ball.
Right. So
ball with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
They call it. Is that the same?
So that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up, because I started fading away because I started fanboying, sharing these kind of similar kind of crazy memories with you, because it's kind of funny how like our lives have tangented a little bit. So when you were in college, I'm assuming, or even during this all time, and I guess as you're creating characters as well, because I know for myself as artists, if I'm trying to go for something, I research things a little bit, or at least a good school artist, and you want to kind of throw back to, certain time periods as well to get things right in a way. Did this also awaken, again, because when we're going back to the childhood, you kind of pulled away, and you were in a very assimilative, type of family structure, that we talked about earlier. Did you start, when did you start coming to want to learn more about yourself as a Filipino? Did that happen in college, or during all this time of awakening where just you're coming to your own as a person and creativity? Did you like being more worldly, and just like you were just saying with in regards to Black history, and when you were, I forgot what book you said you just said you had talked on.
Frederick Douglass.
Yes. So did you find like an understanding for your Filipinx self during this time?
No.
It's all good,
No, honestly, it started. Okay, so it started when my son is 23 now, and he is not my biological son. I've known him since he was 10 months old. And I came back into his life after I moved back from LA the last time, which is a different story altogether. But so I re-entered his life at 10, and then his mom and I we were hanging out all the time, but we started dating. And so I've been raising him since he was maybe 11.
Okay.
And he is, what's that?
It's a fun age, right?
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. No, he was a real inquisitive kid, but he is half Colombian, Polish, German, and Italian, and he could pass as white, but he knew that he was Colombian, and he went to school in Astoria, Queens, and was going to middle school in like Queen City area, and he would get ribbed about being a white kid. He would, like if they found out that he was Colombian, they had more than enough cocaine jokes, and he would get really frustrated because he didn't know what side of the thing he was on. And I realized, right, mixed kid, and his mom is white. She's the Italian, Polish, and German side. So she tried to make it okay and make it important for him to know that side of him. But when being a person that was in his life, I needed to make it important for me to be who I am. So it was okay for him to be whoever he was.
That's awesome.
So I started reading more and, just, talking about being Filipino, even in the cursory way that I am, and not to put a value on it, but just like I wasn't raised in a very connected heritage sort of way, but I am Filipino. Like I can't hide this, and you can't hide who you are, and nor should you want to. And it was, I wasn't there when he was born, so I try not to lecture or try to turn everything into like an after school special. So it's really like learning how to be a parent and an adult. Like, remember, I was sort of flying by the seat of my pants all through my 20s, and then, you know, came back, landed a freelance gig, and that led to another one. So I just sort of lucked into freelance. And then now I've got a 10-year-old, 11-year-old son that I have to model my behavior as best I can and try and answer questions that he doesn't even know he has. So I think, all right. So, I mean, if that's the question that you're asking, what got me on connecting with my Filipino heritage, it's the kid. It's being a better
person
so the kid could see what's important and how,
I love that.
You know, so he could go. And like, he's traveled the world. He's close to his Colombian family. Okay, really quick, this has nothing to do with anything, but like right before the pandemic, for months, his aunt, who is a captain in the US Army intelligence, she was stationed in Daegu in South Korea. So for months, she's been planning to have him come out for his 23rd birthday, which is in February. And so he's going to stay there for a month. So he goes, and we're just hearing all this stuff that's happening in Wuhan. And this was in the beginning of 2020.
Wow.
So we're watching and we're counting the days for him to come back, and he's scheduled to come back on the third week of February. And we're watching the news, and they're closing shit down, and Wuhan's shut down, the entire city. And then shit's popping off in South Korea, and then an army base. His aunt is telling us, like, it's getting scary here. Like, we're gonna keep an eye on Julian as best we can. So day comes, he gets on a plane, takes off. 12 hours later, that airport shuts down. He would have been stuck in South Korea if he did not make that plane. And then he flies in, he transfers in like DC shuts down after he gets on his connecting flight to Charlotte. We were out of our minds waiting for him to get home. And then he got home, and that was it.
Crazy.
Wow. Yeah. Like dominoes.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
And now we're at the other end of the thing.
Still here.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
We're all in the apocalypse together.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
Amazing. Nah, man, I think it's beautiful. Part of the reason why ShoPowSho was born and connecting cultures. I have a little one, you know, and so now I love that I think it's beautiful. No matter when you start or even if you start at all, you know, I think it's important to know where we're from and to connect and help those ancestors live along, you know, again, through this work. So freelance work, to go back to the craft and what you do. What are some important lessons, you know? So like you we've kind of walked through all these different stages. How is that? You know, we kind of walked in, you kind of stumbled upon things and that's been amazing. But did you ever figure out like management, like, or like an agent that helps book you certain gigs now, and you're dabbling with the acting, but you're also, you know, that's where we need to head back into getting back into the art a little bit. Cause you kind of dipped out of the art. You started acting. How do we get back into art again? And then, some touches upon, you know, freelance work and making you just this creativity be what you love and be what you do when it's hard to do, you know, that we get that pressure to get like a regular job, you know, from our Filipinos, aunties and uncles and all that, you know.
I moved back home to help my dad take care of my mom because she got better inexplicably. They don't know what it was, but after a couple of weeks couple more weeks in the hospital, she got better. She was attentive. When the doctor wanted to talk about hospital care, she had no idea who anybody was. Whoever she was not my mom, and whoever we were not her family.
Wow.
But she got better. She recognized everybody. They had her on a battery of, whatever it was, and then they released her, but she needed significant rehabilitation and physical therapy and stuff like that. So I moved back home to help and kind of, figure out what I wanted to do. And in that time, like, I'm 5'7", and right now I'm a healthy 150. At that time, I was barely knocking on 115. I was skin and bones. And I knew I wasn't.
Life.
Yeah, I was. No, it wasn't starving artist life. It was starving depressed life.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that I was in a bad way. And I had a computer and I looked up counseling, and I got into therapy, because I didn't have insurance. I was paying out of pocket. I was doing whatever freelance stuff I could find. If somebody needed a flyer, I would knock that out for whatever. If somebody had storyboards for a short film that they needed, I did that for whatever they were paying. I didn't even care. I just needed that money to pay for therapy. And for whatever Taco Bell deal, you get like
Yeah.
like 3 tacos for $5 and a drink, and I would eat 1 taco and save the other 2 for the next day, kind of thing.
Wow.
But through therapy, unloading all this stuff about my mom and where my head was at and my failures, I kind of got through all that and then stuck with it. And my therapist asked kind of what my counselor asked back in high school, like, what do you want to do? Because I would talk about acting and how dissatisfying it was, like the experience of not acting, but the work around acting and how insidious it all can be.
Yeah.
She's like, but what do you want to do if not that? I was like, I love to draw and I love to make things. And she's like, well, why don't you do that? And I was like, well, I don't even know where to start. It's like, well, what would a person do? She basically walked me through how to get a job. It's like, well, you sound like you know everything, the steps. So let those be your steps. So that's what I did. I put a portfolio together. I scanned everything that I had. I walked it over to, I think I went on like monster.com or something, or Craigslist. I can't even remember where it was, but somebody had posted an ad looking for storyboard artists at Young and Rubicam, which is an ad agency in Midtown. And I went up there and I dropped off my portfolio. And then I got an email a couple of days later that said, we need a storyboard artist. Pay your phone bill. We've left you messages.
Holy shit.
Or we've tried to leave you messages. Yeah. Like I was so broke. I couldn't pay my phone bill. So that's how that started. And then I did that, and that was fun for a while. And then from there I got other jobs from just word of mouth. And that's how it all started, the storyboards and production art work. And then that was great. Like what's a thing that like, somebody famous like Neil Gaiman or something. It's like you could be fast, good, and nice. You only have to be 2 of those things, and fast and nice is my bread and butter. So, so like I just made myself available as much as possible, and that's how it happened.
That's real talk. That's definitely real talk, man. And this business. I'm curious if you and I stumbled across each other in like shows or just that circuit back then.
Hey, we're probably around the same age. It sounds like I'd be surprised.
Yeah, man. I'll tell you something later once we're done. So, man, all right. So all these experiences and thank you again for sharing, because again, there's this struggle I think is important with, with who we are, because it informs who we are, and it helps us make us stronger towards, what we plan to do with our rest of our lives. And I can't thank you enough for sharing those difficult aspects of your journey. But it's important that we talk about the journey, and especially for those that are watching this, because it's got its its hills and valleys along the way, but it's so important.
Well, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that I left out because of personal stuff. But did you watch Bitter Melon?
Yes. Shout out to HP Mendoza.
Yes, that is fantastic. I love that movie. I love that indie sort of grimy filmmaking kind of stuff. I really appreciate that. But I think that was a particularly brave piece of cultural text, because it was
so relatable.
It's so relatable.
Something that I wanted to do at one time, because I didn't connect with my father.
I know that we're my family and the people that I grew up with were so quick to bury the unseemly stuff, and that domestic violence and mental health issues and sexual orientation issues, all that stuff is just not really talked about. And while we can't cover all of it in a single podcast episode, I think it's important that it needs to be addressed. Especially, yesterday was National Coming Out Day, and also Indigenous Peoples Day. So, but I don't know. I feel like all that stuff begs mention, and I don't really get an opportunity to talk about this in a venue like this, or with an audience that you have. So, for anybody that has to deal with the things that they feel like they should be ashamed of, they shouldn't. And if they feel like they need to rage or self-harm or direct anything back towards themselves, you don't have to. You have every resource available to you, especially now, especially during the pandemic, when telehealth is available to you. Please take it, and don't it sounds so cloying and corny, but I promise you, you're not alone. You're not the only one going through this. And reach out to your people, or if your people are failing you, reach out to the people that aren't your blood that will listen to you. Or just get online and look for that counselor. I can't tell you, that saved my life in a way that I shudder to think of what I would have done without it. So
yes.
Oh yeah. Thanks. Yes.
Go to therapy. That's the theme of this episode. That is so important. I'm 100% right there with you.
Yeah.
I've gone to therapy.
Resources,
couples therapy. I think we shouldn't be afraid to say it and speak it, so that way people can know it's we all do it.
Yeah, and I think this is a great time for especially with Zoomers being so vocal and open about their struggles. And some of them get stuck on the get a larger platform because of national tragedy, but they're open about it, open about dealing with it, open about talking about it. And I think they set a good example for the rest of us, if we are brave enough to not look down our nose at what they're doing because they're so young. So
right.
Exactly. Man, thank you for sharing that, brother, and putting out such an amazing message. It's so true and so relatable. So I appreciate it, Glenn, man. This has been fun, man. I can't believe we went a lot longer than I thought I would.
Well, it's
and you didn't think you would go that long,
you
did you?
Think so. You said that.
Look at how much you filled the time, brother.
Well, somebody said, in the absence of eloquence, I'll just ramble.
No, bro.
So.
It's beautiful.
No, but therein lies the wisdom of your come up, the wisdom of your struggle, the wisdom of your experiences. That is what we explore here on the ShoPowSho, how like we're all Filipino.
Yeah.
We all came from different places. Our stories might have similar beats, but we've all come from different places and gone different places and learned different things along the way. And you didn't think you'd had an hour's worth of stuff to talk about, but you've been dropping the wisdom bombs along the way. So
can I ask you guys something? So I see your posts and stuff, and you use the Filipinx nomenclature. When I did a fan art sketch of the, oh gosh, I can't remember her name, but it was the Filipinx Captain America.
Darna?
No, Ari Agbiani.
Yes, that. Yeah.
Yes.
And on Twitter, I put Filipinx and I tagged the creators and the artists that designed it. And like people, my mentions were a mess after that, because I guess it's not a thing in the Philippines. Like they look down on that term with an animosity that I was not prepared for. So I didn't engage with it.
Yeah.
But so one, I saw, do you know Trinidad Escobar, the cartoonist?
I've heard of the name, but I'm not
follower. She's fantastic. Yeah. She's super talented and very, just a fantastic representative ambassador for the culture, and for cartoonists as well. She's super talented. But she had a very eloquent post about that the other day. But I was wondering if y'all have, because I know you're American. You're Filipino Americans as well. If you caught that out there as well, or if that was just a one-off thing because that was such a high-profile character.
Well, in regards to having the Filipinx as part of, and instead of not doing Filipina, is I've done, I'm part of the Nerds of Color as well. Well, obviously the NRW and Nerds of Color. You just become cognizant, and I think you're very worldly. I've seen your posts as well, and just seeing how the culture is moving. And then like even now I put my pronouns I just recently put my pronouns in the Zoom chat that we're in. Just trying to do better is what I'm trying to do. I look a lot of my Latin friends and the whole Latinx, movement, and that's kind of where I'm like, I started seeing Filipinx here and there, but I was like, you know what, because just learning what this terminology is, I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna follow that mold. And I've gotten some feedback here and there, and I heard that Philippines, why are you doing that? I guess I'm just trying to. To me, I'm just trying to do better. And for the most part, it's been positive feedback. I have heard that it's different in the Philippines, like you said.
Yeah.
But people understand, and it's been more positive here than it's been negative.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's just what we all as a culture, can do, and just communicate, vice versa, to just change the world, man. And, I'd rather, err on at least a positive, means than not, So I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm rambling now.
That's how I feel like the past hour and a half has been. So I apologize.
No, it's all love, bro. I know you've dropped a lot of gems, and I appreciate the insight, and I love what you. There's many more questions. Like I want to know how you got in the mix with some of my mutual brothers over at Drink and Draw.
What do you?
Those guys.
Who do you know?
The name's escaping me now because like I've been put on the spot. I was trying to. My brother, he just did the Monkey King. Jerry. Yes.
Yeah, Jerry. I graduated. I went to SVA with him.
I was curious if y'all went to school, and that's kind of like how those connections happened.
Him, Ken Knudsen, who just a successful Kickstarter with his. Also a monkey book. I just put that together. They're like best friends. They were like joined at the hip in school. So the fact that they're still pals now, and and both have successful monkey Kickstarters is funny to me.
So y'all knew those brothers from going to school with them and everything.
Yeah, they were very good in school. Like we didn't cross over a lot. There's like these little cliques and stuff. They were tight. I knew them. I was friendly with them, and I had my own group. And it's a small cartooning department. So
yeah. So shout out to Jerry, if you're watching this. Shout out to Jerry Ma and Ken. And I don't think I've ever met Ken yet, but I've seen work in his.
He lives down here now. He lives in Charlotte.
Yeah.
So
dope.
We'll be there next year.
Yes, we'll be there at Heroes Con. We're gonna have fun with Glenn. Tina, since we don't have Kat, kick us off with our last question, and then we'll definitely have Glenn back when he's got more stuff to talk about, because I can still go on forever, because he didn't think he was going to fill an hour, almost 2 hour time this go round.
Oh my God.
But it's all good.
This is all going to get edited down, right? Like, I imagine the most interesting bit will be like it'll be like the tightest, nice, succinct 30-minute episode.
But I like to let it just go, because I think there's just, I like these kind of podcasts. These are the kind of podcasts that I'm into, just to hear people just tell their stories, enlightening and inspiring. So go ahead, Tina.
So our final question is, we always end it on a nerd check. So what is your one nerdy topic that you could give a TED talk about if given the chance?
Oh my gosh. Man, you know what? I can talk about this is really nerdy. Sequential storytelling, like panel to panel storytelling, like what makes a really good moment, in film or in comics, like just the juxtaposition of one panel to the other, and the space in between, like, everything is just if you really study it, the space in the gutter, you can space it out. It could be incremental, but that could signify a significant amount of time or a breath, or just like I love the visual language of comics and movies. So
I got to get a top 3 sequential artists out of you, Glenn. It doesn't have to be in no particular order, but who would be your top 3 on your Mount Rushmore? How about that? Your Mount Rushmore of sequential artists.
The people that are doing it, that really
could be now, could be back then, a mixture of both.
Okay, so all time is Katsuhiro Otomo for Akira.
Yes.
You can't, like, what he was able to weave in those volumes is significant. Like, it's amazing. For American comics, probably David Mazzucchelli, especially Batman Year One.
Hell yeah.
It's the best of noir and superhero comics. Like, if you can, like, that's a thing that they've always missed out on. Every single time a Batman movie comes out, is they've never done the detective stuff. They've never done a quality noir Batman movie, and I have high hopes for what Robert Pattinson's movie is gonna look like.
Me too.
Top 3. And there's so many young bucks out there right now that are just killing it. But right now the 2. Oh gosh, there's 3 actually. Sarah Alfagi, if you know her work, she's young. She's like maybe in her early 20s. I met her at Heroes Con, when the last one that happened in 2019. And her prints are gorgeous. Her storytelling is fantastic. She's great. And then there's 2 dudes that their stuff is so electric that I love, is James Harron, who just put out Ultra Mega. So if you like giant kaiju stories, that one, and then his sort of other grimier side, like to his style, is Daniel Warren Johnson,
Oh yeah.
who did if you love, oh, so we're all creative, go pick up his 2 volumes of Extremity. It's like Miyazaki meets Fury Road with kaiju in it. It's and like the hero is an artist. Like it is fantastic. There's so many, but those are some great. I could go on. Like so many.
That's a good answer.
I love it. I'm not familiar with Sarah. Sarah, I need to check out. I wrote down your list so I can check it out. I'm familiar with Daniel and Jim Herring or
James Herring.
Yes.
James Herring. Yeah.
I'm familiar with that.
Like there's just something so kinetic and buttery about his line work.
Yeah.
And
I love it. There we go. We're giving flowers to other people, man, too. While celebrating.
Always. Like I said, that's the thing that I took from Steve. If you're lucky enough to have somebody want to give attention to you, you better be quick to pass that along to anybody else.
Awesome. Speaking of that, where can we find you online? Where can we follow you?
Oh, it's simple. Everything. My website, my Instagram, Twitter is all Glenn, 2 N's, Urieta, Urieta. That's it.
Perfect.
There we go. My brother, Kuya Glenn, now part of the ShoPowSho family. He didn't think he could last this long, but we did it. We went 2 hours with this brother.
2 hours, and we didn't talk about like Muhammad Ali or Bruce Lee or.
I know. And I'm loving the Bruce Lee art behind you, and I see the hats. I see the Illa Manila, the Philippine skateboard team.
Yep.
Shout out to Illa Manila. I got that same hat right there too.
Yep.
That's your second TED Talk.
Yeah, we'll have you back, brother. We definitely got to have you back.
I'd love to.
Man, love to share your story again and just promote any project you may have going on, bro. Thanks again, man. Salamat po, Kuya Glenn. There we go. ShoPowSho. Boom! There you go, Glenn Rita. I'm probably brutalizing it again. I apologize, Glenn. I'm terrible with names sometimes. Terrible. But that was so amazing. Thank you for sharing, going throughout your entire journey, your struggles, your successes. It's all part of the journey. And I think it's so important that we do this and let it manifest to motivate us into what we're going to go forward with our lives, man. I think it's a beautiful thing. And I can't thank you enough for sharing. Tina, I saw you taking a lot of notes and you shared a little bit back with him. So what was the final takeaway with this interview with Glenn?
Oh, well, first and foremost,
Heroes Con. We're going to Heroes Con. We're going to go to Heroes Con.
First and foremost, we're going to Heroes Con 2020 for the 2022 40th anniversary.
Hell yeah.
So we'll see Glenn next year. Super stoked. But the main takeaway that I really got from this show was just how important mental health is. Glenn made a point to speak on it, and again, that's just really important. There are resources out there, and when things get cloudy up here in your head, it's time to go to therapy. Therapy, counseling, reaching out to a friend, talking about the mental health, talking about the issues that we face and the struggles that we experience. It's so important. So I really appreciate that he made a point to bring that up and to drive that home, because it really is. Therapy rocks, guys. But also just, another great story of immigrants coming to this country and trying to do their best by their kids and releasing them to the wild and making their own path. He talked about how he didn't really, have too many Filipino influences in his bringing up, because they wanted, that assimilation. But then how he had to turn back on that and be a brown father to his mixed son. That was really, that was really powerful to me. And I'm glad that he was able to find his culture in that, to be that role model for his son. That's also just really important. Yeah, just overall a great show. Like I'm another quote that I just want to leave everyone with is that comic books, with comic books and with reading comic books and with taking it in and enjoying the visual language of comics, as Glenn put it, you control the pace by turning the pages.
There we
and
go.
That stuck with me. So yes, you control the pace by turning the pages.
I love it. That's how we ended. That's a mic dropper right there. That's a statement that's it. I'm done. I said it all. And this dude, this amazing Glenn Urieta, didn't think he was gonna fill an hour and a half. We've gone. This is probably gonna be one of our longest episodes looking at everything. So look at my man. Just, you're an amazing person, Glenn. I can't thank you enough, Kuya Glenn, for coming through, sharing your story, inspiring us, inspiring those that are listening and watching this. Can't wait to have you back, and we'll be partying at HeroesCon 2022 with you, bro. So Tina, for Kataphorric that couldn't be here, follow Kataphorric on everything. That's, I think, her handle.
Kataphorric, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Kataphorric.
There we go.
And you can follow me at viva.valentina on Instagram and TikTok, and Viva Valentina XO at Twitter and chess.com if you want to play me in chess.
There you go. The chess bully giving you those kisses and hugs with those X's and
still, I gotta reach out to Chabu. What's he doing?
Oh, he's making a cross-country trip right now. He's gonna be the actual episode, I think, before this Glenn episode. Shout out to my boy Chavi. He says hello. I have to tell him about that chess thing. We got to get that happening again.
Right. I just saw Made on Netflix. That was good.
Yeah, with our boy Chavi. There you go.
Yeah, awesome.
For your boy Kuya P, it's the legend Kuya P on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. The Nerds of Color on everything. ShoPowSho, obviously, because you're on the ShoPowSho right now. And of course, the NRW and At New Release Wednesday, where nerds rule the world, with all my homies there. But Tina, I love you as always. Mahal kita. Kat, I love you, miss you. Mahal kita to you, and to you, our audience. Mahal kita, salamat. Maraming salamat. Until next time, we're out of here. ShoPowSho.
Mahal kita din.
Deuces.
Hey, I'm Glenn Urieta. I'm an illustrator and comic book artist, and check me out on the ShoPowSho. Hey, I'm Glenn Urieta, and I'm an illustrator and comic book artist. My Filipino heritage is important to me because I'm born and raised New Yorker. I'm the son of immigrants who thought assimilation was survival. And no matter how hard I tried to erase it, deny it, kill it, my Filipino heritage refused to lay down. And now it gives me strength. And it's a part of me. It's as much a part of me as being a New Yorker and as an artist. And it'll outlive me, and it'll give strength to all that live like me. So, Philam for life.